this is one of the most feature-packed electric skateboards with some truly special, unique features not available on anything else out there. I'm extremely excited about the OMW Cavalry. Let me tell you why. OMW is a brand new company with only one product, the Cavalry. This is their first iteration of a premium level electric longboard, and I think they have done a phenomenal job. It's not perfect with some small issues here and there, but for the most part, it's an amazing board with some really unique, innovative features. The first thing that stood out to me was the deck and the battery enclosure. Normally, the enclosure is bolted onto the deck, and the type of enclosure determines how flexible the board is. If you bolt on a flexible enclosure onto a deck, that will allow your deck to bend and flex. However, if you attach a solid enclosure that does not bend easily, it will make your board extremely stiff with no room to flex. The Cavalry here did something really interesting. They put together a very flexible deck with a stiff battery enclosure with no room to flex. But instead of bolting both pieces together, they left a gap about half an inch tall in between the stiff battery enclosure and the flexible deck. This gap is sealed by a thick foam tape. This ingenious setup allows the deck to be flexible, giving the rider great carving response and road vibration dampening while keeping the battery enclosure rigid with as little moving pieces as possible. This design allows the battery compartment to be built with the utmost safety in mind with a rigid alloy metal enclosure, which seals the battery into individual metal compartments. This design mitigates impact damage as well as fire risks. But all in all, this gap design is unique and works great. However, the deck is not truly as flexible as a board using a flexible enclosure, but it's also not as stiff as a carbon fiber board. It's kind of in between the two extremes. It provides the stability a rider would need to reach high speeds while being able to provide a responsive carving experience. It's a compromise between the best of both worlds, and a well-executed one at that. If you're ever in between choosing a stiff versus a flexible deck, the OMW Cavalry here is the compromising solution that might just fit your needs. The rated mileage on these 7-inch AT tires are about 5,000 kilometers or 3,100 miles. This type of lifespan for e-skate tires is simply unheard of. I normally need to change out my Evolve 7-inch tires every 500 miles or so. But now OMW is claiming their special tires will go more than 6 times the distance than Evolve tires. If this is true, then that could potentially be huge and huge savings. My OMW rep did say that they tested on normal road conditions and got that result. Personally, I think with the way that I ride electric skateboards, I don't think they will last 3,000 miles because I ride quite aggressively, but I do think the claims will be directionally true. These OMW tires are made out of hard rubber compound that are much stiffer than Evolve's standard 7-inch tires. Personally, I think that's the reason why it's rated to go so much longer. I was concerned about these tires being too stiff because they're hard, but after putting some miles on the board, I can confidently tell you how the tires feel to the touch of the hand has almost no bearing on how it feels on the road. I filled these tires up to 35 psi and they ran extremely well. It feels a little bit stiffer as compared to other soft tires, but not enough for me to switch them back as the difference is really minimal. 3,000 miles on one set of tires would simply be amazing. It will save you hundreds of dollars from getting new tires, which is why I'm going to test these out. I plan on putting 3,000 miles on these tires and see if they truly last as long as they claim. Oh, and because these tires are a bit harder, they're more puncture resistant, which is an amazing feature if you live in areas with less than ideal road conditions. How many times have you seen broken electric skateboard decks on Facebook and other social media platforms? OMW is so confident with the quality of their deck that they're offering a lifetime warranty on it. Usually in the United States, the marketing term lifetime warranty means the lifetime of the product, not the lifetime of the purchaser. So as an example, if you buy a Samsung cell phone with a lifetime warranty, the lifetime warranty would only work for 5 years because that is the lifetime of the Samsung phone. That is the estimated lifetime of the Samsung phone. When I contacted OMW, they explained to me that at any time, if your deck is broken, you're eligible for replacement, which really sounded like the lifetime warranty of the user. This is an amazing value and reassurance and confidence in their own product. With the 7-inch wheels, the maximum acceleration of the board feels a bit tame for a 14S board, especially at the lower end of acceleration. This is because OMW Cavalry is geared for top speed with a pair of 55-teeth AT pulleys, which are noticeably smaller than the traditional 66-teeth gears that comes standard on other boards. For those of you who are new to gears, the higher your gear ratio, the more acceleration you have, but at a reduced top speed. The lower the gear ratio, the less acceleration, but you will have a higher increased top speed. As you can see here, this is a low gear ratio setup, which helps the Cavalry get up to higher speeds, but at the cost of slower acceleration. So the motor output and power is there. Board has an extremely capable drivetrain system, but is simply geared for higher speeds. Hopefully OMW will offer higher teeth AT gears for their customers, like the 66T pulleys for people like me. People who like to zip around and do a lot of stop and goes without cruising at a remarkably high speed. Once the board hits mid-range to high speeds, that is when the board truly comes alive and feels extremely powerful without being jerky. It can hit a speed of 37 miles on the stock setup, which not many stock factory boards can do right out of the box. The OMW Cavalry has a 70 amp ESC. However, I do think for their next iteration of the OMW Cavalry, they should up the current for the ESCs. When compared to other models made by other brands, 70 amps is not as high as what it was before. For now, at the price they're charging, it's perfectly reasonable and perfectly powerful for anyone seeking a thrilling, fast, and stable ride. For the next one, I will list it more as a quirk because I got used to this riding difference in just minutes, but I felt it's worth mentioning. There is a noticeable rolling resistance on my board. It's not too aggressive, but I can feel the board slow down slightly as soon as I let go of the accelerator, and then ever so slightly push up the accelerator again. When I do this on other hobby wing boards, I would continue to coast forward at the current speed. Other hobby wing boards I have wouldn't accelerate until I push the knob past my current cruising speed. Whenever I let go of the accelerator and push forward again, I need to ever so slightly activate my leg muscles so that I don't fall off the board, because it seems like it's actively slowing down even though I'm still pushing the accelerator, but just not as hard as the current speed. I double checked the drivetrain system and the pulleys for possible points of friction and resistance, but they all seem fine, and the front wheel free rolls a bit short, but it shouldn't cause a noticeable decrease in coasting speed. I do think the rolling resistance is coming from the motors and the ESC, so this might be something that needs a little bit tweaking, but like what I said before, I listed this as a quirk because I really got used to this difference in a matter of minutes, but I felt it's something that people should know. Braking is pretty smooth for the most part. I was able to do some hard braking and the entire braking curve felt smooth, until right up to before the board completely stops. It locks into position and suddenly applies full braking strength. If you're not expecting this behavior, you might be slightly surprised and need to jump off the board. Because, momentum. This happens at 1 mile per hour, so I don't think it's a big issue, a super big issue, but it took me about 1 to 2 rides to actually get used to it. Aside from that, everything with the braking is well tuned. Another interesting thing about the brakes is that if your Cavalry is completely stopped and you push the board forward while holding the brakes, it will spring back to where it was before. This is super interesting to me because if you're stopped at the end of a sidewalk and accidentally push to a board into traffic, it will just come back to you. Neat. The ride is overall extremely smooth. It's extremely powerful, but the way it's tuned gives the rider a lot of room for error to ramp up speed. It's quite a forgiving ride, but packs a punch at high speeds when it's needed. There's virtually no jerkiness or sudden motions whatsoever. What is super interesting about turning on this board is the design of the DKP trucks. The structure for the double Kingpin truck on this board is a lot longer than a typical DKP truck. My guess is that this new form factor has enabled more leverage because of their length for better turning and harder turns. The bushing installed is currently 106A equivalent bushings, but they feel more like 90A bushings, which feels extremely soft. My only explanation is that this new elongated structure is very responsive to turns and requires much harder bushings to remain stable. If a 106 bushings are this soft, I definitely don't want to use the other set of softer bushings that came with the board. If you want a better carving experience at the cost of stability at higher speeds, feel free to try out these softer bushings. Overall, I'm very impressed with how well it's able to turn and at the same time hold steady on fast rides. If you want a great carving experience, I recommend you to change to SHR bushings for some high rebound action on this board. If you're looking for extreme high speeds, switch to HPF double barrel bushings for stability. If you want the best of both worlds, the stock bushings are actually pretty good and lean slightly towards the softer carving side of things. Again, the board is geared for top speed with a 40T gear. It comfortably reaches 30 miles per hour and could keep climbing, but I usually don't go past 30 miles per hour on e-boards because it gets way too dangerous. But I can tell you that the board was still steadily climbing at speeds of more than 30 miles per hour and seemingly have a lot of room left to keep pushing. The acceleration is slightly improved with the smaller 6-inch diameter wheels. It's not a day and night difference, but the difference is big enough to feel it if you're looking for that slight increase in acceleration. The ride is still extremely smooth on these wheels. There's no jerkiness, no rough motions. Carving is a lot more fun on these nimble tires as the board becomes more responsive with these smaller wheels on. These 6-inch tires have a flat profile. This means a whole lot more contact patch and surface area for the tires to grip the road with, giving the riders more confidence when making hard turns. The downside of these 6-inch tires is a noticeable decrease in comfort because these wheels are more rigid and have a surface area with the ground. The downside of these 6-inch tires is a more noticeable decrease in comfort. Because these wheels are more rigid and have more surface area with the ground, you feel a lot more vibrations and a lot less dampening from the wheels. Like all things in life, there are trade-offs, pros and cons for everything we choose. And here, when it comes to these tires, if you want the 3,000 miles rated tires, more comfortable tires, safer to ride tires, you go with the 7-inch tires. But if you want something more aggressive in acceleration, more grips, for the slower top speed, you go with the 6-inch tires. Street wheels are included with the OMW Cavalry as well. These OMW street wheels are slightly narrower than what you find on other electric skateboards. These are about the same width, contact patch-wise, as a MAD 105 boosted wheel. These wheels feel extremely rubbery and very soft, like many other standard offerings from other electric skateboard manufacturers. They provide a much more responsive ride and faster acceleration due to its small wheel size. However, the ride does naturally get more bumpy. If you like traditional skateboard and longboard feel while getting the most range you possibly can, then these street wheels are for you. I do have to emphasize just how much more aggressive the OMW Cavalry gets once you put these street wheels on. The acceleration gets noticeably more monstrous, on par with other 14S boards I've tried before. If you are particularly looking for acceleration, going to street wheels is your best bet. This board becomes extremely responsive when turning and carving on these street wheels. One weird thing about these wheels is that the pulleys are not removable, so you're stuck with these default pulleys if you want to continue using these street wheels. You can't switch pulleys to change ride dynamics on these wheels because none of my spare pulleys fit onto the current OMW trucks. So I hope in the future OMW can come out with interchangeable pulleys so that we can actually try on some other wheels. The other thing with using the PU wheels with this new deck design is that the board sounds like a hollow drum when going over dips on the sidewalk. Remember when I said the battery enclosure and the deck has this space in between them? This space allows the deck to act like a drum where you're going over bumps and amplifies that noise. It's not a big issue at all, but it's just slightly louder than what I'm typically used to when I'm going over road bumps. You get a bunch of high-value freebies when you purchase the board, and these freebies are worth hundreds of dollars. For example, the OMW Cavalry comes with 4 premium metal wheel hubs. It doesn't say on their website, but these are A380 aluminum alloy wheels. They're a bit heavier and cheaper to make than the standard 6061 and 7075 aluminum wheels that we see on the market today. Despite being heavy, they're extremely well balanced than traditional plastic wheels and needs no extra steps to be balanced. These alloy wheels also include all the bearings on the same piece of the wheel hub. This design increases the stability and decreases the likelihood of wobbles while going fast. The bearing spacers are also pretty cool. They go on the outside of the bearings and the wheel, which removes the need for washers to be placed on the outside of the bearings and removes the need to align the annoying spacers inside of the wheel every time you need to mount it. This is the first time I've seen this particular design. The downside of this design is that these spacers tend to fall out a lot and might get lost easily. One thing OMW can improve on the wheel hub design is the locking mechanism. All the metal hubs that I've seen before include a design that allows the both halves of the wheels to lock together. Another improvement OMW can make to their wheel designs are the hardwares on their wheels. All the other metal wheels that I've seen before require only one screw to lock into place the entire wheel, but the OMW's implementation requires a screw and a nut on the other side, which is pretty annoying when trying to take the wheel on and off, and just makes the entire process a lot longer than what it should be. The wheel also does not come with some sort of locking mechanism with the pulley. It's just loosely connected. So the only thing that it's depending on to stay in place is actually the wheel nut. If the nut on the wheel actually falls off, there's a high likelihood the wheel will just roll off your board immediately. However, with other boards design, when the pulley and the wheel is locked into place, even if this nut falls off, there's a high chance, a high likelihood that your wheel will stay with the board on the truck for an extended period of time. Lastly, these wheels are the standard narrow design, which is great, but it would be better if OMW can also offer a wide rim design in the future. Wide rims can accommodate a wider variety of tire shapes and designs. The Cavalry comes with a free handlebar, which is pretty cool. This way you can easily pick up, carry, and drag your board along with you when you're not riding it. I actually skipped this step because I feel it wasn't really necessary in my use case, so I just left it in the case. The front LEDs are actually pretty great. These lights are purchased separately, but for a limited time you can get it free included with your purchase. These lights cost more than $150 if you were to purchase them individually. These lights are made out of all metal and are extremely well built. They're quite hefty in the hands and are extremely bright at night. These are great seeing lights if you do a lot of riding at night. To install these, it would require the disassembly of the front truck and part of the LED lights. However, I found a cheat way to install this really quick in just 30 seconds, and that's by using two smaller screws right down these two middle slots. The OMW Cavalry is equipped with Samsung 50S cells, the best cells in the industry when it comes to voltage sag resistance throughout the entire discharge cycle. These 50S cells together make up 864 watt-hours of battery capacity, which will get you plenty of range. I roughly got 23 miles out of the board using the 7-inch AT wheels. Your mileage may vary depending on your weight, outside temperature, and average speed. The ESC bridging the motors and the battery pack is a Hobbywing 9028 ESC packing a total of 35 amp to each motors for a total of 70 amps. This ESC is packed with new features, particularly app connections, so you can customize your ride and make sure your ride is more aggressive to make adjustments so that your ride is more aggressive, more relaxed depending on how you would like them. All of that is super cool. Also, the ESC allows for a standby mode, which lets you remotely turn the board on. The standby mode doesn't last forever. I left the Cavalry alone for 3 days, and by the time I came back, the standby mode was already turned off and I have to manually turn on the board. Just an FYI in case you think the standby mode will last forever, which I don't see a lot of people mentioning. Finally, the motors connected to the board are 6374 165 kV motors. These are highly respectable motors with a high kV, which is designed to be focused for high speeds. Remember, the higher the kV, the higher the top speed, but the slower the acceleration. And the lower the kV, the lower the top speed, but the more aggressive acceleration. The deck is composed of carbon fiber and fiberglass composite material. This is one of the thinnest e-skate decks I've ever seen in a while, and it flexes very well. The deck concaves upward slightly towards the edges so you can get extra control of the board without feeling discomfort. Also a reminder that OMW has a lifetime warranty on these decks, so go nuts. Also, I really didn't like the original grip tape design, so I kinda made my own. I just peeled off the original design and traced it over with a black blank grip tape design, and I think it came out great. The Cavalry is made with forged DKP trucks. DKP trucks in general are more impact resistant and more reliable. They are nowadays the standard features on almost all mid to high range electric skateboards. The truck is 9.5 inches wide, just wide enough to be stable when you're going at high speeds, but still responsive when you're making those tight turns. And of course, strong enough when you need to hop off a building or something. The board comes with standard Hobbywing OLED remote that shows your standard telemetry data as well as odometer, current speed, gear, and battery percentage, as well as turning the lights off and on. It's made with the same great quality you would expect from Hobbywing. It's slim, not too bulky, and fits great in gloved hands. The standard charger looks exactly the same as generic chargers used by other boards in the industry. It charges the board from 0 to 100 in about 4.5 hours. Slow charging is good for your batteries, but OMW should also offer a fast charging option in the future for customers who may need to rapidly charge their boards, as this option is currently not available. The The board is well crafted and sealed with an IP56 rating, meaning it's dust and water resistant, but I would recommend riders to actively avoid riding in the rain and wet environments. Cavalry is 38.5 pounds, not too heavy for a board this size. I find it moderately easy to pick up and move around, but it won't be fun if you have to carry this board around with you for an extended period of time. The ground clearance on the bottom is an impressive 4.5 inches, which is plenty of room. Even when I switched to the 97mm street wheels, I still found the clearance to be plenty high. So far the bottom hasn't been scratched yet on these small wheels. The deck length is 38 inches, which is pretty standard in the AT category. If you're worried about trying out a brand new company for the first time, don't, because OMW offers a free, no hassle, no risk 7-day return period. This is a great sign that the company is confident about their product and that riders will fall in love with their boards. After 7 days, you get a 1-year warranty on everything plus lifetime warranty of the deck itself. That's a whole lot of warranties comparable to Evolve Hadian's carbon fiber AT boards. But that skateboard costs $2,400, while OMW's board is only $1,599 with free shipping and no tax. This board is great for someone who is new to electric skateboards, who wants something powerful to start with and grow into, instead of buying and outgrowing electric skateboards. It's also designed with safety in mind to protect the battery enclosure from impact and fire. It is also made with longevity in mind. With the tires, it would allow you to go thousands of miles without the need to get new tires. OMW Cavalry came into the fold swinging and landed in high places. There are small issues to be worked out here and there, but for a first iteration board, it is simply amazing. I recommend this board if you can overlook the small issues that I mentioned in the video. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.